Is Trinidad and Tobago open for business? What signs did the government and the private sector show us within the last fiscal year that Trinidad and Tobago is indeed ready to open its doors even wider to the business community around the region and here in Trinidad and Tobago and around the globe? I've got with me Gabriel Faria, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the TNT Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and also Wade George, who's the Chairman-elect of EY Caribbean. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. We are mere days away from Budget Day. Do you guys get a little bit busy and nervous around this time?
I guess I am nervous. I expect Mr. George is busy.
I'm excited and busy. I think there's a lot going on, and we are very interested in covering the budget. So.
Yeah. When we look at the 2019-2020 fiscal package and what we would like to expect, what are you guys sort of hoping for?
Well, one of the things we've been going to bed and praying for every night is that the finance minister has spoken at the previous budget and at the midterm that he was going to take action on overdue VAT refunds.
Right.
I think when I listen to the business community, the one thing that we are hoping for is that he will put that into place in this budget. In fact, I'm confident he's going to do something. It's having a debilitating impact on many businesses in making investment decisions, in looking at their exports, and it's tying up a lot of cash. So I would think that's my number one. Right. That's my number one wish.
Foreign exchange is also a huge, a very popular one on the wish lists of many businessmen as well too, Wade.
Yes, well, that's more of a structural issue.
Yes.
I'm not sure that problem will be solved easily unless we look at the underlying causes, which would be the shortage of foreign currency in the system as a result of the contraction of the energy sector. And if we continue to manage the float as we have, then we could expect to continue to see increased demand and decrease in supply. So it's going to be a tight situation unless they structurally make a change.
How different do you think this fiscal package is going to be from the last one?
I really do not, we do not expect any material new taxes. I think if you look at since the administration took office, there has been a series of tax increases, both at the corporate level and the individual level, with only minor breaks, such as the reduction in the VAT rate and the increase in the threshold for personal allowances. So I don't expect, or we don't expect, materially new taxes. We believe that in a time on the eve of an election year, that is not to be expected.
Mr. Faria, you know, there's a huge belief that the private sector has a huge role to play in generating foreign exchange. Have we seen any signs from the private sector within the last fiscal year that the private sector is doing its part to help generate foreign exchange?
You know, it's interesting. When you look at other economies and you look at Jamaica, you see a lot of collaboration between the government and private sector. We have seen companies making investments in export-focused or foreign exchange-focused activities, be it manufacturing and services. I was talking to one of the manufacturers who was on our program midterm last year, and he's now started exporting into Latin America. I was talking to the person who's put in our hotel development. He says he's hoping to have it operational within the next 6 months, the new hotel development in the Port of Spain. So I'm seeing activity. I think what's happening to businesses and what's happening to government is that government has played such an important role in the economy for so long. They need to also get accustomed to their new role. And their new role is really to facilitate business development in the country, to create an ease of doing business, to provide an environment where businesses are not focused on VAT refunds, on getting foreign exchange, on dealing with on licenses. You know, a simple thing like the Land License Act in Tobago, I think, I can't remember how many years ago it was implemented.
Many years.
While the concept was that this will help the Tobago economy, it has actually had a negative impact. And that Land License Act means that not in Trinidad, but in Tobago, every single purchase of land must get approved and go through a rigorous approval process. They tell me 1 license per year. If that were removed, foreign exchange earnings could change. dramatically for Tobago.
Well, right, because that's essentially, how do you rate the Tobago economy?
When I talk to Tobagonians, on its back. And
Of course, the problems with the air bridge, the sea bridge rather, hasn't helped.
It hasn't helped, but I think what we really need to work on is have a more holistic perspective. Stop reacting to problems. A simple thing like pulling back on a landline snap, which doesn't need to go to Parliament. It's actually, the way it was implemented was, I think a minister can change this, and they can do it in cabinet, will mean that people can now invest in Tobago. Construction will change, tourism will change, foreign exchange income will come in, and the prices of property in Tobago have been flat or negative. So that is a significant opportunity. I think businesses can play their role. It means a refocusing on the government's role.
Yes, we couldn't agree more. I think in terms of the contraction of the role of government, this is an ideal opportunity. And because we have a robust private sector, we have capital sitting on the sidelines, we have the best financial sector in the region, we need to use our strengths and play to them now. And that's what we would really like to see, which is a real structural change, not just lipstick and rouge, but real structural changes in the way we operate the economy.
I want to expand a little bit on this state-private partnership, because there is supposed to be public-private partnership. Where are we at in terms of that, and are we in a good place? Because it's a chorus, it's a regular chorus, that the private sector and the public sector and government should all be collaborating with each other, and things would be a lot better within the business community. Are we at that point? Or anywhere close to that point?
I think the best model I have seen for that is in Jamaica. There's actually an office of the private sector or something inside of the Prime Minister's office.
Wow.
And there's true collaboration. And I think there is what we have is a government that's still trying to figure out how it can contribute to the economy. How can I generate revenue? As opposed to creating a liberating environment and allowing the private sector to make investments, allowing the private sector to go through they had an implementation committee was set up some time ago. I would like to know what's the update on that, because that was supposed to help the private sector to go through the roadblocks. When you wanted to put down infrastructure and so on. So what Wade said, I think, is something the private sector would really like to see. Create that environment. There's capital sitting here. I can't remember how many billions of dollars.
There is tremendous capital. We are we have that cushion compared to our Caribbean neighbors. Of a robust private sector and financial sector.
Is it then, because I mean, it's not just this government we're talking about governments of the past as well, have had problems with dealing with the private sector. What are these major hindrances? I know, Mr. Faria, that you pointed out to a few, but there seems to be hindrances that every government, are bringing up when it comes to the private sector, because you guys talk about the government talks about you.
I think we are at change, a new normal. We have to understand that up until 3 years ago, the government, through its petroleum revenue, petroleum tax, generated almost 40%.
Yeah, almost 50%.
Almost 50% of the budget of what we spent. Today, the government no longer has that went to the low of 1 billion.
Yeah, so from 50 odd percent to around in the 20 to 30% range. Yeah. So it's a significant fall off.
So in those days, the government had the capacity to say, we are doing this. Today, the government, like in Jamaica, needs to say, let's leverage the financial system, let's leverage the capital in the market, let's look at entrepreneurship, let's look at helping businesses to scale, right? When you look at the amount of small businesses that are in Trinidad versus, I use Jamaica again, there are 45 companies on their junior stock exchange. We have one. Yeah. One. And there's so much capital sitting there. If instead of looking at grants and so on, to create tax incentives for organizations that invest in entrepreneurship, in scaling small businesses, we can change the landscape.
Yeah.
We're talking to Gabriel Faria and Wade George. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the big question. I want to know from them, is Trinidad and Tobago really open for business, or is it just a myth? Next. Welcome back to the Morning Brew, everyone. We're talking business ahead of budget. It's a huge, huge topic of discussion, especially with the way the energy sector is moving. I've got Gabriel Faria, the TNT Chamber of Industry and Commerce Chief Executive, as well as the Chairman-elect of EY, Wade George. Gentlemen, thanks for sticking around. You wanted to sort of dive in, Wade, on this discussion of the private-public partnership.
Yes.
You see some loopholes where the private sector can fill.
I do. I really do. We think that what we have is a structural issue, as I said. You had a patriarchal government bolstered by the energy revenue that it had. We have government significantly intervening in various parts of the economy that are not necessarily best suited to government. And now, because revenues are shrinking, there's a real opportunity for government to divest of state assets through a competitive, open, transparent process. Allow the private sector in. What would that do? That would increase revenue for government. That would allow for the private sector to bring better goods and services to Trinidad and Tobago, create new avenues for employment. So we have this opportunity in front of us that not many of our neighboring island states do have. And I think we ought to take advantage of us. This is where the recession presents us with a tremendous opportunity, and we ought to take advantage of it.
What is the state, if I had to ask you guys, and maybe in one sentence, what is the state of this partnership between the government, the public, and the private sector of the business community in this country?
I think it's less than optimum for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
That cannot be healthy, though, especially at a moment in our history where we're trying our best to divert away from energy.
I think what it requires is a recognition that we're in a new normal. We have to change the mindset. And, you know, Wade and myself were talking earlier, this mindset has to change on both ends. It has to change from government in recognizing the role the private sector plays. You know, when you look at a dollar that the government invests in a company, and you look at the return that dollar provides versus the dollar that a private sector invests in a company, you see significantly more returns coming to government. The largest stakeholder in a successful company is the government. They take 30% of every dollar. So they don't need to own the business to get the best return. When you look at state sector companies that are generating suboptimum results, right? The government loses because they don't get the tax. They have to put money into it. Whereas if a private sector individual is running that business, the government, without investing a single cent, walks away with the single largest stake.
So it comes back to the question that I would like to ask you guys, Wade. If this is the state that we're talking about, that are both, and I'm saying private and public, the big question really is Trinidad and Tobago, we don't seem even open to our own businesses, so are we open to the world?
So look, we don't want to be overly critical. Of course, we have a lot going for us in Trinidad and Tobago, and we ought to be optimistic about the future. The way we would like to look at it is that what we see here is a tremendous opportunity, but it does require a change in mindset, a change in the culture, a more facilitative environment. And we have a private sector that is willing, by and large, to step up and take over and spend more time in the economy, and as Gabriel rightly said, make their contributions to the taxes, to employ people, and there will be spin-off benefits to the economy overall. You can have a more streamlined, more efficient government focused on the areas where the population really want them to be focused, which is, one, national security, certain aspects of public utilities, education, etc.
Right. There are a few more things that I want to touch on very quickly, including the post-budget analysis, but first, devaluing the dollar. I was actually listening back to last year's budget statement, preparing for a show, Financial Fair Play, and the minister alluded to that. He boasted about it, that, you know, we did not devalue it. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't like to use the word devalue. I think what we need to do is we need to balance the exchange rate so that there's less pressure on individuals having to hunt for foreign exchange. That's what's happening to us. I believe as our economy equalizes, the dollar will move to where it should go. And I recognize the government's hesitancy in allowing that float. However, what it's done is that Trinidad and Tobago was one of the most competitive economies in the Caribbean. What we have seen is we have seen Trinidad manufacturers losing that competitiveness. I was talking to someone the other day, and we were talking about imports from Turkey. Their dollar is evaluated, I don't think we want to go there, but their dollar is evaluated at an obscene rate. And what that has done is that's made them a force exporting into the region. Right next door to us, Guyana, Jamaica, Domrep. Those countries have seen their dollar, and the word devaluation is a scary term. We have seen an adjustment over a period of years, which is in keeping in pace. So instead of saying, oh, let's have a 50% devaluation, if the currency moves where it's supposed to, and I want you to know, if you look at the Canadian currency and the US currency and the Australian currency, there's movement. The only currency that I think we're afraid to see movement is whatever that movement, revaluation or devaluation, is the Trinidad currency. Why? I don't understand.
I think there's a genuine fear, right, that it will cause inflation and it will impact the less well-off in society.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, yeah.
But at the end of the day, what you are trying to do is fight market forces, and you are not going to win that fight. So there will be a black market created because there's a shortage, and the dollar has already been rebalanced based on that black market. Yes. So is it a fight that you can win?
Beverage container bill, guys, the private sector. Are you guys, is the private sector fully on board with this?
Yes. In fact, in today's Guardian, there's an article on it that Geisha did. And I think we have to recognize that, again, we always look for quick fixes. We must understand there's a holistic perspective. I mean, when you are in Singapore, and you throw a piece of gum on the street, they charge you $300. After the third time, you go to jail. In Trinidad, the consumer has there are no repercussions. When you are in Europe or in Canada or in the US, and you put your garbage out, you can put your garbage out recycling garbage. The beverage container bill is one component of a solution. But of course, it's getting a lot of momentum, but we must recognize that there are no silver bullets here. We must look at consumer education. We must look at enforcement. And I mean, I want to commend the Ministry of Works for what they're doing with the traffic regulations. I mean, it's scary because, you know, so but we have to start as a population. We have to recognize we have an obligation. The most important obligation all citizens of Trinidad have, and they say it, I think there's a term they use, the only thing more certain than debt is taxes. In Trinidad, unfortunately, and the Revenue Authority is one, and it's not a budget item, but if we can get and mobilize and collect taxes from every professional, every doublesman, every taxi driver, you'll be surprised how much more money there'll be in the system. What we've been focusing on is taxing the compliant. We have to tax everybody equally.
Reid?
Yeah, so we would agree with that, and there are mechanisms. For example, Russia just deployed a system for digital taxation where they provide an app to smaller businesses. That app can actually help the business manage the business in terms of cash flows, in terms of electronic invoices, etc. At the same time, the app allows direct payments based on a revenue tax, a small percentage of revenue into the system. So there are systems out there that can allow for that level of compliance. We just need to change our mindset and look at it and try to innovate to get there.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. We're going to head to the 7 o'clock news right after this break. When we come back, what does the budget have to offer to Trinidad and Tobago? Well, these guys are going to be doing a post-budget analysis, and they'll tell us about it right after this. It is the calm before calm inward storm on Monday. We're talking budget and we're talking business. You guys, after the storm on Monday, will be breaking up the numbers in a post-budget analysis on Tuesday. Gabriel, go.
Yes, at the Hyatt, breakfast starts at 7. The actual event starts at 8:30. What we find, many people come early. It's an excellent opportunity to network. I'm amazed at the number of people that are calling and making reservations. We get updates twice a day. We are providing an energy perspective, and I'll let we talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So Mark Loquan is coming in there, significant experience in the sector. We think he's going to provide exciting insights, and of course his current role at NGC, which is quite pivotal in that area. Of course, a fiscal overview, where George has always participated, or in the recent past since I've been there.
Your honor.
Yes, and has provided significant insights. Riaz Ahmad is going to be there. A number of businesses he's involved in, financial sector, distribution, finance. So I think it's an excellent opportunity to get that perspective. And of course, the minister. And you know, the minister, it's been quite a number of years he's been coming to our function. And the one thing the business community walk away with is insights that we didn't get on the day. Mm-hmm. He's always open to questions. He's always responds, and he's genuine and honest. And at the last event we had, I remember he commented on how positive the exchange was. So I'm looking forward to that. It means that people can ask the questions, and it's at the Hyatt. It's $500 plus VAT for members. $600 plus VAT for potential members. And of course, if you take a table of 10, you get a 10% discount. It's interesting, our sponsors, be they EY, First Citizens, the Guardian Group, Guardian Life, B-Mobile, those are our platinum sponsors, have actually agreed to we have agreed to put part of the sponsorship into subsidizing some of our smaller businesses so they can get a preferential rate, and those are chamber members or other businesses can call in or email the chamber. We'd like to recognize our gold sponsor, Unit Trust Corporation. Again, they've been doing a lot in the entrepreneurial landscape. Our bronze sponsors, Sudden Sales and Service, and the Trinidad and Tobago International Financial Center, who have also, they're reevaluating their role in this new environment. Right. So it's going to be exciting. It's an opportunity to meet with the movers and shakers in Trinidad and Tobago, network before, and walk away with a fresh insight. All right,
I'll give the final word to you. You're going to be doing that review of what the words the minister speak. You'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, the main event here is the FaceTime with the Minister of Finance. I think for the population at large, post-budget, that's the person that you want to hear from. But I think, you know, Mark Loquan and NGC's perspective as one of the pivotal players in the energy sector is important. We're at a point of inflection. We have a situation where our prices for natural gas are continuing to go up, and the competitiveness of our downstream sector is being threatened. So that discussion is an important discussion for the population at large to get their heads around. And of course, we will provide with EY a total fiscal overview of, and a scorecard, I think, at this stage of the game, given that we're on the eve of an election next year, of how this administration has done, what have they executed on, what have they not executed on, and things to look forward to the future.
Yeah, the problem with interviews like this is that it can go on all day. Wade George, Gabriel Faria, really appreciate you guys being on the Morning Brew. Thanks a lot for talking to us on Budget Monitor and on the Morning Brew. Look out for extensive coverage here on CNC3 of the budget. We'll be right back.
Thank you.